walking slow in the moonlight glow. A stranger hums with a heart full of woes. Got a tale to tell, you better know. Turn on your set for the Bill Jones Show. Bill Jones Show, it's the Bill Jones Show. Everyone's watching, it's the Bill Jones Show. Tune in the magic, let the stories unfold. Catch the fever of the Bill Jones.
Had a crazy UFC this weekend. Saw something, like this guy Josh Hokett. I mean, a young person that completely come up in the media. He into MMA guru, and he comes out there and he put on like this American thing, and he's like "Rah, blah, 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 blah," just all over the place, and it created this weird stir where it's like, yo, if this guy fights and get knocked out, it's absolutely terrible. But if he doesn't, people will love him because he trying to entertain. And then like the whole event, great fights, knockouts. And then in the last fight, I mean, the fan favorite get knocked out in a way where, his persona is he is the samurai and he fighting this other guy, and the other guy literally steps badly and breaks his ACL. Like he can't move anymore. And the first thing what Samurai Man does is kick him, what? And he like got kick, throw him down because he literally can't balance on his next foot. He rip his ACL. And on his last, the guy spamming the left hook now, but Jiri Prohaska coming in and he hand down and he just whap, catch him on the chin, flatline him. It was terrible. Like how people don't even like this new guy, the guy who won. But he said something powerful, like the guy say, the whole Jiri wants a rematch, and the narrative is that he took it easy on him, and that's why that happened. But I didn't see that. What I saw was that man on his last, and he was dangerous, swinging, spamming out that left, and Jiri walking it and get knocked out. Like I'm not sure he should get that title, that title fight again. And then it messed up because the guy ripped his leg, and he gonna be out for like 8 months. So that kind of they might have to put like an interim belt out at some point. And I think that could make Jury fight for the interim, or some kind of thing like that, or make him fight somebody up at cupboard. Let him fight Paulo Costa, Jiri Prohaska, Paulo Costa, and then let Paulo Costa fight whoever on the other side of the contention. I saw something yesterday that make me kind of sad, boy. Now, anytime you're having conversations about football with Trinidadians, Trinidadians always absorbed into their fandom. And you know what? Fandom might be the theme for today, in retrospect, thinking about fandom. So, in work, this guy, he's very aggressive, and he's like a know-it-all, like an IT person. I know everything. And we start talking about football, and he immediately goes into, Ronaldo is the best player of all time. I used to back Chelsea, and I find Ronaldo was right up and So in starting to talk to him, I finally get it out of him that he doesn't look at football. He doesn't actually watch football. He just, maybe because of his children or whatever, he saw a game that amazed him or some kind of thing, and he thinks, Ronaldo is this great player, Ronaldo is this, and if you want a team to win, you go put Ronaldo on the field, and they don't respect the game itself. What makes a player, you want to watch a player, you want to look at Brian Lara, you want to look at David Beckham or any of those guys, is because they brought something to the game. Zidane, they brought a fantasy to the game where they got some obsession with the ball, and in finding that obsession, it make them great at what they could do with the ball. Messi is literally a special human being. He definitely have, the autism and all of these kind of things. And what we see him do, like as a child, they told him if you score more, we'll give you chocolate. All of that is crazy. Like, so on the Restless football podcast, which is the biggest sporting podcast in the world, Gary Lineker, a striker, um, Alan Shearer, striker, Micah Richards, a young right back. And they didn't really look at much Ronaldo highlights from when he was in the Premier League with Man U. It quickly went into a conversation about who is the best player and why they think Messi is the best. And then Micah Richards, of course, just pushing back as a pundit says, well, Ronaldo is the better Ronaldo than Cristiano because his pace and how iconic he was and what he did back in the day and da. So then Lineker makes a list where he says Messi is the best. Maradona is then the next best, then Pele, and then Ronaldo, and then Cristiano. So he is saying that Cristiano don't talk to him because he's put him at number 5 and not the best. And that saddens me, boy, because when Cristiano moved to Real Madrid, that's when I real hardcore start watching football every game. And on the weekend, my brother loved Ronaldo, and he bought Ronaldo's number 9 jersey when he went to Real. I buy Xavi jersey after watching a full good season Barca and they win the champions. I buy Xavi jersey because what I used to see him do on the ball, I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought as a human being, what he brought to the game was special at the time in that Barcelona team. Really, Messi is, Messi, but at the time, like, Messi will be great for the next 15 years at that time. But Xavi right now in his older years was the jersey I buy now. And so I watched Messi and Ronaldo play for years in the league together until Ronaldo left. And, I see, bro, to be honest, the amount of wonder that I see weekend after weekend, just moments. All I see right now in my mind is just Messi on the ball doing all kind of crazy shit. And it was a time in my life where, to me, most of my joy would come from, Messi doing great things. When the team took a turn, and I kind of had to stop watching because it's like my happiness is connected to them doing well, and they're in a place where the board corrupt, the thief and money, there's all kind of weirdness they're saying about the players, and they weren't competing, and that broke my heart. I kind of had to stop watching football for a while. Now I look at football from, like a not as a fan, but just a lover of sport. Where you look at these young men and these athletes, and it's beautiful that they're able to pursue these things. Because in Trinidad, we lost our youth number, our youth. My girlfriend and her sister teaches in a school. The mother they're working in the early learning center and thing, and I see it being in theater. Kids don't have imagination anymore. Kids lost their imagination. When I was young, we would want to be astronauts and all kind of thing. These kids want to be taxi driver, policeman, army man. That's all they think it have around them. And of course, I'll be talking about rougher areas, but that is where I live in. That is where most of where everybody live in. Trinidad is a big rotten ghetto. 10 years ago, when people started squatting out Valencia and you're hearing about, like, I heard about, so I gone in Valencia to check this girl with her partner, and she living up a track off the main road, and it have no electricity up there. It have no running water up there. They tap some shit, and that's how they get water. And like, it's funny now. You go there, and she have like a solar panel, and she charging she tablet and all of them kind of thing for when the night come and they want the entertainment, no? So we walk in the yard, and there's like a beautiful big garden with a shack in the middle, and it have a big log on the ground. And my brethren watch the log and tap man. He's like, hey, let me log in, dog. And he sit down there and start to build it now. And but the stories that came out of this place, like they were talking about some drug lord who living in the back there, and he's like sell whatever. and he like buying her. So he's have sex with, everybody. He also have AIDS. So he just in the back there, anybody who young, who pretty and who cool, he just pulling you under his wing and then having sex with you. And basically this dude had get AIDS from him and them set up and shoot him. And because he had AIDS, he never walk again and just suffer and suffer until he die. Like those kind of like that to me. When I thought of that, I always kept it in mind to write a story about like the Wild West. Like that's to me that is the West now. Like all these places that underdeveloped, don't have electricity, don't have water, but just have squatters. Young people that can't get access to housing and just going in these places and living. And it's chaos is areas that I guess not under the postal system, not properly policed. It's just a bunch of like all the areas that we have real criminal problems as the issue. Laventille, La Hocata in the East, Maloney, like it's just places that kind of pop up, but also had a lot of squatting and thing over time. A lot of people like going to Maloney and live there not from a real community. They're just coming from wherever and going in Maloney. Historically, we know those people are like descendants of small islanders that come and squat in Trinidad. And the theory is the reason why all these people live here for so long is because they're black and they could just be a Trinidadian and look like a Trinidadian and vote for the PNM. And that was disputed for a long time. But personally, to me, when you go into these areas and you talk to people from all these areas and things, like you find out that yeah, actually they ethnically and culturally are not Trinidadian. They more akin to where they're from. They have a different culture. They eat differently from us, and yeah, it's just it is what it is, you know. Yeah, so I was sad about Ronaldo. That Ronaldo is going to be remembered not for what he brought to the game and how he competed in the game on the top level, but people will remember him for his media, for having a six pack, for having definition, and for having stats, not for really playing the game. And you could see now stats don't matter. When you look at Mbappe, Mbappe is the worst good player to ever exist. A player who could score a hat trick in a final and lose because he doesn't press, because he doesn't bring professionalism to a team. He literally has a high XG, expected goal output, but he also lowers or raises the goals that a team is expected to concede because he doesn't press and add things to a team. And I think that is the difference with Real Madrid. Real Madrid could come and score, and Mbappe could score, but a team is going to, at the end of the day, outscore them because they're at a numerical disadvantage. When it comes to the modern game, the pressing game, like that has always been the most important facet of football, the physicality. And he thinks he can get by with his pace. But for how long? Mbappe, I think, is 25, 26 now. Will he at 29, 30, 31 be the same player? Look at how Ronaldo dropped off and had to change his position. Mbappe don't seem to have the brain because he changed his position as a young man here and he like not getting into space in the way that you need. He is not a Karim Benzema and he's not a Olivier Giroud. He's a winger. He's not a Thierry Henry. He don't have the skill and the brain like Thierry Henry, dog. It's sad in a way because he's a person completely brought up by his ego. You see all the memes now about him being dictator Mbappe, which I love because I hate him. I think he's I think that is not what the game wants. The game don't want these like basketballers. Everything is me, and they just don't compete. They're like 2 years at Real, they ain't winning nothing with he dog. Barca more consistent with the league, and he does just have ups and downs. At the highest level, you can't afford to have that. When Messi had a down day, it was still an up day. That's how good he was. But if you don't have all of that in your bag, like at some point you have to recognize that it's beyond the money, no, but like yeah, when he already have more money than he can spend now. he have a next 8 years to make $1 billion. What was the point of that? Nobody want to remember you for your money like Ronaldo. All the money Ronaldo have, Ronaldo could pay all the journalists. Real Madrid was paying journalists for years for Ronaldo to be in Ballon d'Or contention, for all their players to be in contention, quite frankly. And look at what happened when Real Madrid's machine can't outcompete with PSG's machine, and they get Osman Dembele to win the Ballon d'Or. Like, that's what it is. It's a PR machine. I'm sure these journalists, something that voted on this, they being kind of paid in a way like, okay, you're a journalist, you're a coach. Well, journalist, you could vote. Over time they giving you stuff and they have that relationship with you. You are their journalist, and these are the people voting on the Ballon d'Or. It's complete trash. I think. I think that the power of the algorithm too. Like, everybody understand this algorithm thing. Like, these businesses, marketers, politicians, um, Real Madrid pushing for Ronaldo to be this Ballon d'Or winner, and then this algorithm comes and says, well, people that in your sphere like Ronaldo videos, and then the fandom starts making these videos and pushing these narratives in the comments and in the world and in the media, and like, I don't even know. At the end of the day, we know that is reality. We know from the manipulation of narratives in QAnon, the manipulation of people with the Cambridge Analytica thing, that preference as people think it is not what we think it is now. Like, people are very easily susceptible to doing things. People can be brainwashed, hypnotized. The mind control real. America been studying that since the 70s. They could anybody do anything they want and have no memory of it. Tell somebody to do something in some state on drugs, and this person tries their absolute best that they could ever, and tries to do this thing and then has no memory of it. That's magic, dog. Like, that's magic. And as in, like 10, 5, 8 years ago, saying things like that, you watch your back because you're mad, but you're putting a tinfoil hat. But now we recognize that, these narratives true. People have been using QAnon and thing to change the narratives or what pedophiles are. Like, I mean, all that shit weird, though, when you look at what companies were doing to people for talking about, trans people and all of this kind of thing. And when you look at it now, these cultures and all these people engage in these things like are soft pedophiles. I kind of almost went down a rabbit hole there about the whole maps thing. People who, are maps, and I don't even really want to talk about it because they were banned, but like the companies, the Amazons, the YouTubes, they are defending these people. And in a way, I think these people are like social implants who have had personalities implanted into them, narratives implanted into them, and they are evangelical in it. They fighting to literally bring evil into the world to suit their own needs. And where this come from? From watching, little drawings of kids in anime and this, and like, who knows, no, but like, it's crazy. Now I afraid in a way to keep looking at things. On my YouTube, they're telling me to make videos about tax and taxation and this about tax and that about tax, because right now, not tax, pension, because we're in a situation where our country crashing economically, and all our investment funds that have to do with pension, they're crashing and they're seeing the money dwindling and they can't pay out people in the future. But we have every couple months, we have the government installing and uninstalling a police commission and giving them big pensions to suit them. And look, we bring in this guy and we go and fight crime, and then he failed. Well, we fire him because he didn't fight crime. We bring in this guy because them go fight crime, and it's just over and over the same thing about people competing for pensions. Um, Stuart Young, who was prime minister for a couple of days, and he was going on with a minister's pension, like all the ministers who form against him in the PNM and push them out, the other faction, they literally just like do whatever they could to make sure that he didn't get that pension. As a kind of like, what is all of that about? Like, he don't even need that. After all those years of being minister, the amount of business that they have now, Like, what's the point? What's the point that's still taken from us, no boy? Taken from the country. I don't get even Gary Griffith, the amount of money he make allegedly when people, people say that when he was there they had to pay 10,000 or something like that to get the bribe for the gun license. And when I see now on social media gangsters and things talking about the gun license, it's 15,000 for it, which means they making a 5,000 on it. And whoever is the man working in the police who was getting the money before, they taking in that money. Like, you could bribe in Trinidad for CXE. You could pay, I think it's 1,500, and you get a CXE subject, 1,500 a CXE subject. That's a crooked ways, dog. Everything in this country, every single thing in this country, purchasable and sellable. You understand? Like, every single thing. Look, right now we have a state of emergency. We have a state of emergency right now, and normally in a state of emergency, they lock up like 10, 8 to 12 drug dealers, drug lords, men who is kingpins, who living in rough areas, bringing in kids when they're young into the gangs to do street level robbing, people who living in housings and plannings and things. They would set them up with guns and drugs, and, they would, this is we turf. They bring in drugs from South America, dealing with guns from, South America, and getting drugs and cocaine and all this kind of stuff, England and the US, Canada, and using these networks to launder foreign exchange. And them and his criminal, dog, even using music and thing to launder and bringing people into the gang, like all of these kind of things they using. Like, they sophisticated, no, but these criminals is not even who they're locking up anymore. Now they're locking up 23 people. Gal who dealing with Venezuela and this Venezuelan, and this is kidnapping and extortion. And what we seen is what it is. Our police, our intelligence own drugs now. Not now, for a long time. At the end of the day, years ago when Dolce D was active, is Ramesh Lawrence Mirage brother get hold with Popeye in an attempted murder on a Jamaican businessman, dog. And Lawrence brother used to sell fruits in London. So he is bringing fruits in from Trinidad with, bananas is basically what is used to stuff drugs in, and he's selling that over there. That's why back in the day, when all these fruit stands start popping up over Trinidad, like, it's clear that it was money laundering, and it's clear that it was part of the drug trade. Like, you're getting fruits in containers from places, most likely with drugs. And I actually know somebody who from Venezuela wanted to open a juice factory like 20 years ago. And some Colombian lawyers pull up on them and say, well, we'll do what you call a spider web, a old communist mafia trick where the factory is yours, but at a markup price, the goods coming in, the goods coming out, and the logistics is controlled by us. That's what it's called the spider web. And the guy couldn't run his business because basically the interference from these actors. I mean, you don't want to get in a situation like that with the mafia, though. Somebody make a mistake, and the next thing you know, they cut off your head, and you had to bury it without a head. Like, that don't make sense, you know. Um, yeah. So YouTube telling me to make pension thing, and how I should profit on disaster, dog. Like, now all these geopolitical channels and all these war channels that come in to just tell people how bad the world is and how close we is to nuclear Armageddon. And these people aren't specialists. These people ain't study this shit. Like, it have men who really study this shit and really study the world and work in intelligence and and they could tell you all kind of thing about, like, they just be wrong all the time. People looking at figures to be right so that they could talk to somebody and be like, yeah, I was right. I know better than you. Like, that's what we see after COVID. No, but people just want to be right. People just want to be able to wag the finger at people and tell them, you have to listen to me. because I know, and you dumb no, but you don't know. That's I hate that. You know, I was taking in something the other day with Joe Rogan. You know, a long time beacon for conversation and some years ago, 5 years ago, Duncan Trussell talking to him and telling him that eventually the swamp will infiltrate what it is he have now, and that will be his circle around him, and it'll be difficult for him to see past like what people telling him now. And in the modern day, Duncan tell him that he have to wrestle with an invisible arena of people determining the next thing you say and constantly trying to prove yourself and find yourself through your morality. You know, like that scary dog. That real scary dog. Like at the end of the day, the same grift that Joe and all of them fellas get catch with, I get catch with too because of them. Or rather, not even because of them, because we're susceptible to it. When I watch Trump on Theo Von, I was like, what? Trump is a family man. Trump cool. Trump just edgy. You know, he just punk. However, you know, he don't want to go to war. He war, you know, he at the end of the day he war right. But all of that was a grift dog. You know, is about oil going in the Middle East again, and you know, you just have to accept that you're dumb, no boy. You're dumb. You don't know what's going on. You just get catch. You know, I vote for Kamala the first time because I thought I needed to vote out Rowley. And guess what? You realize Kamala is just a part of the machine. If she wasn't a part of the machine, you know, look at the world right now. Look at what happening with oil. What happening with the downstream right now? Like Australia and thing in panic because they don't know if they could get potash. They will have problems with agriculture. The world possibly a month from now could be in famine. We know what we know about famine. We know it's take I think 4 or 5 days before a parent would eat the child, where the instincts would take over the mind and they would literally eat their own child out of hunger, dog, out of being in a famine. Like that's what happened in Russia and shit. You know, we coming towards that, dog. We all our potash company, we are one of the biggest producers of potash and urea and shit in this hemisphere. Them want to leave here because why? We government pushing them out. We closed down our oil refinery, dog. At the end of the day, whoever, like people could say all kind of oil is expensive to buy and this and that. Like all of that is short, no, boy. All of that is short game, dog. At the end of the day, you're making so much money all the time that you're supposed to be able to tank a loss in the short term, but things so mismanaged, dog. So misrun. Look at the airlines. Airlines making money for how long? COVID hit and all the airlines started complaining. Some of them had to close down. Some of them this. Like all they making money all this time for so long, dog. And first thing all they gonna do is fire everybody. Like all they never, like all they had no savings, dog. Like for real. All they have no strategy. They shit hit the fan. This is the direction that we have to go. You know, this is the short. You know, this is the long term. Like business has been so disappointing to me, dog. Like business people and the business world, all the things that we see in the world, it's clearly companies profiting of a disaster, dog. All this shit with the video cards and why didn't the American government step in? Why are they building all these data centers when you don't have the energy for it? Why are you guys hoarding the technology? You know, they should have something. Well, I mean, the world capitalists at the end of the day is who buying and who selling. But at the end of the day, just like Trump passing embargoes to tell people not to do this and not to do that, they should have do that. Like tech companies have to, you know, they're making so much money, billions of dollars, they float in the American economy. They should be not. They should have products for people now for video cards and like what happened to the cards and all the technology that they was making to not mine coins and so people could just play game or edit videos or like where all of that went to, boy. You know, or everything just so expensive now, dog. Like people are benefiting from this in a big way. Don't be fooled. Like all these companies, you know, for so long they depended on chips from Taiwan, and Taiwan under practically siege from China. So if tomorrow China invade and nobody could get chips, I mean all our technology is just going to crash. Like all of that don't make sense, dog. Like who set to benefit from all of this now? You know? these costs. Who going to soak in all of these costs? You know, when the world, like, think about it, with the potash and all the pesticides and things, they're literally just gonna let people starve potentially over what? Over Iran nukes. Like, that is the same thing with Iraq, no boy. Like, it's the same playbook over and over and over. You know, I listened to Tim Dillon, and Tim Dillon talking about Trump should just come out and say that he faked his assassination. And he should tell us how he do it. And I know everybody's so in awe of the things that bring him to this point. That straight up, he's like a magician to everybody, dog. Like, everybody get catching this griff. It's sad. Me too. Me too. I get catch. I watch everybody in Trinidad get catch recently. You know, when the UNC make money, you go make money too. You know, all of that kind of thing. Like, all of that is a griff that people just getting catch it over and over. Keith Rowley was telling people that he's the best businessman in the world, and that's why he could broker oil and broker this and. But he have a business in Tobago where he's selling goat, and he depended on Trinidad for food. So, like, when the boat couldn't go to Tobago, he animal and them started die because he don't even have processing for grain. He's the prime minister Trinidad and Tobago, and you have a business where you're trying to do an agricultural business in Tobago, development, blah blah blah, and you don't want to, like, allow other people with businesses to bloom. So you have a big company selling lamb and thing to whatever cans and thing, and you just depending on Trinidad for feed. You don't see, like, let's develop all of Tobago. I, Keith Rowley, I will have a feed factory, and I will have my animals, and everybody from Tobago could buy feed from me at a they don't have to pay for the shipping, they don't have to wait. Like, that to me is business. Like, but then why do that? No, but the capitalists believe that competition does erode profit. By the end of the day, advancement, technology, don't grow in a bubble. It need competition, or else people won't know. So I just my young naive perspective looking at, what I think is shameless. I think, I read for months about, Rowley and Stewart. I'm talking about closing the place because oil on the dung and oil going out, and nobody ain't gonna be selling oil in a couple of years. Like, talking that woke shit, that people going and go green and the world going and supplement itself with green technology and thing. I read Peter Thiel book. Peter Thiel straight up say, you know, the green technology thing was a failure, and he cites his reasons for why he see it as being a failure. Tech people going into it, um, but really from a financial perspective, where they see this as an investment and they're trying to pursue it, not because they in the technology now, but because it is just a talking point that people follow in. Like, that was very interesting where he was saying, if you come as a technologist to me and you wear in a suit, you're trying to be a salesperson. If you're not wearing a polo with your company jersey, he not even interviewing you. And then he goes on to say the only successful green tech company is Tesla, because Musk build a battery, get 500 million subsidy money from America to build the battery, but he put it in a car and sell that car. Everywhere that's selling electrical vehicles now subsidizing those batteries. How that green, you know? And the costs, electricity, the still burning oil, like, it is silly, no boy. It is silly to move in a direction like that without the real means, you know? Struggle thing, struggle thing. Yeah, we talking enough of that shit though. I just wanna rage about Nintendo now. Everything is to buy though. Like, I was talking about the resistance and jail thing just now, and like, I remember the girl who was working in the court, and she sees some weird document and talk about it. And then a couple days, Andrea Barat. A couple days later, she get raped. When I read about the guy who's the rapist, apparently he had another article where this woman who he raped talk about it was some weird situation, and he abduct her and rape her, and then he started crying in the room, and she started feel sorry for him, and and what you found out is that this was a criminal, a rapist, that he just in jail, but he would be released from jail ever so often, and he would do these kind of things, rape women. The state lawyers have this man in jail and releasing him to go and damage and hurt and enact violence on other people. Like that's where our system at. Land grabbing. How much people die when Rowley and them was in power last time? Squatting later literally became legal under the DP, and then people was going all over Trinidad and squatting. When I was talking about Valencia earlier, all of that happened under Rowley first time. Squatting was free. I remember I was going to the Nature Society from UE, and they had over the years Gabriel money from donations and wanted to buy a piece of land up by Madamas or somewhere, or by a beach. And this old man, family owned real land on the island, had to tell them you can't do that because he owned real land all over Toko and Mayaro and thing, and the land gets squat out. You go there, people have fig leaf and Obia flag and thing planted there. And if you go there, they come in with cutlass to come around here. Police not moving them because the PNM decriminalize squatting. People, their supporters, black people from wherever corridor, leaving where they go in and going in other places and squatting. Now we have all this gang crime today. And that came from Keith Rowley and them doing that shit, dog. Where people go into new areas that don't have bosses living, that don't have anybody living, and they go in and squat there. They bring in weed and coke or whatever inside of it. They put in gun down in the ground and thing. And now die their area. The ghettoized Trinidad, dog. Baptize it with blood and ignorance, dog. Like, it's sad, it's sad, it's sad. That same man who they used to release from jail and thing, after he raped that girl and the investigation come up and police hold the man and beat him to death and say he fall off a chair. You know? It do end. it do end. Anyway, let me talk about Nintendo, dog. So Nintendo have a problem. Nintendo, women don't want to be kidnapped anymore. Women don't want to be seen as they need help, right? So Mario and Zelda has historically always been about saving the princess. The name of one game is Mario, and Mario does save the princess. One game is Zelda, the princess, but she does be saved by you, a boy, a warrior, right? So in the latest games, Breath of the Wild, there's this whole thing where you do have a memory, so you go back to places that you used to be and you see pictures of the place, and then you would remember the past. No? And it was weird. It's like Link is this champion, but why? You feel that he is the champion because of what happened in the past. The games are the past, but that is not the same character. That is a new character. So why is this character a champion and all of this kind of thing? You never find out. All you just find out when you go back in time is you just see Zelda memories. So it's not your memories, it's Zelda memories. So off the bat, Nintendo is guilty of not having a story. Not having a story in a modern game. Shameless shit. No world building. It is absolutely terrible to think about it. Like, what saved them is Breath of the Wild has a feel. When you're alone and you're bored in the game, it does feel like you're alone. And it's nice to feel alone in there. It's like what you used to get from playing a good MMO. But when you play whole day and then you go in and log off, you go somewhere quiet to log out and you sit down with your character by a campfire or something and you feel the world, the silence is relax you. And that's what make Breath of the Wild a good game now. But then Tears of the Kingdom does come about. And first of all, there has never been a direct sequel. Really. A direct sequel. Like you had to kind of guess that is the sequel kind of thing. But okay, Majora's Mask is a direct sequel. But, it's not even the same type of game. It's the same link. It have real games with the same link. But they don't really continue in terms of villain and story. But Tears of the Kingdom does. Tears of the Kingdom... Dog, first of all, Tears of the Kingdom is frustrating. The beginning of the game, the intro to the game is about 20 hours long. where you start off on the Sky Island, and you have a whole set of objectives to get. You had to get a parachute to navigate the world. You had to get something to go up in the air. You had to get this. You had to get that. You had to get this, and it's all in the beginning area of the game. But how the game is the game is to explore, no boy. So you take real long to find these things. I read and players miss most of that and play the game and miss a lot of things, and Nintendo fail to make the game linear for you to go through the intro of the game and start. They almost punishing you for playing the game the way that Breath of the Wild was played. The game that and it shouldn't even be Tears of the Kingdom. It should be Breath of the Wild Part 2. And what makes the game really terrible is the game is a beta game. The game now is not finished. Tears of the Kingdom is not a finished game. Nintendo had to patch it so much because of bugs, and the game is unplayable in my opinion. Like everything is way more expensive in Tears of the Kingdom. Everything is rarer in Tears of the Kingdom, but you have to collect 100 of this to upgrade your armor. Like, why are you making the game like a grind, like World of Warcraft at its worst? It, the grind upsetting. It's so much things to grind. You had to go underground and grind zone and night to get battery. You had to go up in the air and you had to grind parts to build thing. And then when you go down, you had to grind costume, and then you had to grind this, and it's a sort of fan service thing. Like, the problem with Breath of the Wild too is you spend all this time doing these shrines, feeling like you're preparing for something, but then have nothing for you to prepare for. You go in Ganon Castle, it's real small. You literally in an hour you run through the whole castle. It's terrible. Um, there is nothing to challenge you in the game other than a couple mini boss fights, like fighting Linuses. So that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's making videos on YouTube about them fighting Linuses or fighting this enemy and styling on it, and it's weak, no boy. The game have no appeal. It don't even have replayability in my opinion in Tears of the Kingdom. Because why would I want to subject myself to all this just grinding and going down here and you touch this thing and then you touch that? Like, you're literally running underground in the dark. Can't see nothing, running past everything. Then you have to go back, and I hate it, dog. Honestly, is in all my life, 28 years of playing Zeldas, I never owned GameCube and all them kind of thing. I borrow them thing. I borrow GameCube. I borrow Wii to play Twilight Princess. To play. I borrow Men Advance to play the remakes, A Link to the Past, and all of that kind of thing. And I never put a Zelda down. I would play it until I beat it. How much ever days it is, I would just play it because I'm obsessed with it. Like, I'm frustrated by Tears of the Kingdom. I hate that fucking game. I don't want to play it down. Like, I just want to beat it. If I wasn't streaming, I would have played it down already. That's the only reason I still playing it, because I streaming and I set my mind to stream this. So that why I playing. I glad Dota got a patch right now, dog, because I could just sit down and play some Dota and enjoy myself, pick Rubik and spam shit, rather than going Tears of the Kingdom. Like, dog, when I stream Tears of the Kingdom, I just be tired, dog. I burn. I hate that game, dog. Like, it's feel the anxiety building up. Oh, I had to run 2 miles up this thing again, and dog, understand the Switch cannot run Fortnite. The Nintendo Switch cannot run Fortnite. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody playing Fortnite, Nintendo can accommodate Fortnite. Though. It laggy, it don't load. Like it worse. Like the PlayStation, kind of like they just take a little while to load in. I think that's internet and thing, but with Fortnite and other games that on other platforms, when you play it on Switch, is you could tell that is a step back, graphically and all of that kind of thing. The Switch can't run Tears of the Kingdom. Everything expensive. The mats and materials to make things very expensive. But if you make something and walk 5 steps away from it, it disappears. Like, hey, how sad it is. It have one quest where it have this thing underground, and it have 4 holes in the map. It have an eye for the thing up on the world. So you have to take the eye and drop it down in a hole. So in an open world game, you should be able to, you see it now, boy. But basically, when you find the location that it is, If you walk away from it and it disappear, it will keep respawning back at the location. But when you throw it down in the hole, so I throw it in the hole and I dive behind it. Once you pass quarter the hole, the item does disappear and respawn at the bottom of the hole. And if you go down there and move it anyway and it disappears, you have to go back to where it respawns. So Nintendo actually cannot even track an object or you interacting with a quest. They cannot actually make the quest the game though. You literally like you have points where you could interact with this object. So like you go and put this on a cart and put a rocket launch on it and move like 10 miles in the dark and reach where you had to reach. And then, so I do that. I jump out and I walk to pick up a chest. When I open the chest and come back, the thing unspawn. I had to go in my load save because the walk over there would take like literally 20 minutes, dog. 20 fucking minutes to do that over, dog. I had to reload and go and just start back at the point. And like, that's unacceptable to me that the game is a beta game and Nintendo released this and, they marketing it and it have this critical acclaim. And study something, Breath of the Wild is 8 years old by now. So it might be 9 years old now. Like, Tears of the Kingdom, 2 years old. And how it could have all of that, like Breath of the Wild had it too, but it wasn't that bad. So they up the ante, make the world way bigger, more thing to render, and you can't even take 5 steps away from something. Shameless shit, dog. Shameless shit. Now it have good stuff in the game. It have games I really enjoy. You could watch me stream it if you want to see me enjoy those things. Or you could see me just cussing the fucking game. Because that's a lot of the time what does end up happening when shit unspawn and you realize, yo, I just waste a half an hour and I had to waste the next 20 minutes to do that over. Like, it's upsetting, dog. It's upsetting to see what Nintendo putting out for fans. Because at the end of the day, no company does ride the success of the fan base bigger than Nintendo. Like, Nintendo is the Apple of the gaming world, bar none. Like, Nintendo fans, like, even Ada Bridgen used to argue with me that the Nintendo 64 was a better console than the PS1. And, like, to me, the PS1 is the most groundbreaking console to ever be released. The PS1 changed the culture of the entire world. When people started modifying the PlayStation 1 and burning the games, when the small mini PlayStation came out and people used to modify that and burn the games, dog, like you paying $10 for 5 game and thing from Nanans, that changed the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, dog. We became a culture of technologists because of the PS1, dog. You understand? No, like, and I'm not joking. Because a generation of people grew up playing PlayStation games, got into computer gaming and thing because of the PlayStation. When they get into computer gaming, we had Dota and Warcraft and Starcraft and thing here. So people get cultured, but a lot of people end up going into IT and tech fields and all of that kind of thing because of that shit. The PlayStation 1 changed our culture more so than even how Jersey Shore changed our culture to facilitate like tight clothes and tight clothes and wearing tattoos and thing. Like, you couldn't wear those things in Trinidad without being branded a type of homosexual. It was only until Jersey Shore then people started being a little more free with how you can dress and what you could wear. In my school, when Dipset and thing was wearing tight clothes, like, men stop listening to Dipset because it's like them on Bullaman thing, but them wearing tight clothes. It's just interesting how culture so easily controllable. I was thinking about music in Trinidad. People are saying Trinidad, the best music is 80s music. People listening to Coke music from the 80s, disco and all of them kind of thing, little rock and thing. And they think that is the highest level of music. Forfeiting all the music of the world to say that just because I grew up with this playing on the radio, this is the best. And radio station Zelda. We's the alternative radio station. We playing rock from the 80s and all of that whack, dog. You're not being different. You're not saying everything different. Shit is whack.